Hey everybody. This is kind of early and this is off the cuff. I wanted to talk about Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm a little bit late to this game because the movie's been out for a week or so, or a couple weeks now. But I finally got the time to go see it because it is a very long film. It is close to 2.5 hours at least. And it's just amazing, amazing movie, and there's a lot of things going on in it. There's, of course, Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt. The cast and crew of this thing is just insane. Um, but I'm going to go a couple of. I want to talk about a couple of specific things. So a lot of people are giving pushback about the representation of Bruce Lee in this. And I think what's being lost in that is the fact that this movie is a fantasy. So there's going to be some spoilers here. Just a heads up. I want to make that clear. You can't talk about some of the things in this without having some spoilers. And the movie's been out for a while now. There's been videos about it. There's been, insight into the film. So I'm going to give you my take on it. So the movie is a fantasy. And there's a lot of what Tarantino did is he has meshed together uh, real people, real historical events, and also fictional people, complete fabrications. Characters are mashups of actual real people. Like, for example, Brad Pitt's character is a kind of a mashup of Lee Majors with Hal Needham, and so who is a prolific stuntman in Hollywood back in the 60s and 70s. And he went on to direct and make a lot of films himself too. He was pretty much your standard badass stuntman. By the way, Brad Pitt turned 55 today. He's 55. And I dare you to see this film and think he is older than like 35, maybe 40 at the most. So, anyway, the film is beautiful. Tarantino did some design in this, and I'm still not sure. I mean, it has to be digitally done. He recreated 1960s LA, and he did it in subtle ways and beautiful ways. The cars are beautiful, just pristine. Just the city is cleaner back then than it has become now, due to pollution. But what's really neat about it, and we were just in awe of this when my husband and I went and saw the film, was the fact that the scenes where they're driving and the beautiful like recreations and storefronts and the theaters and things like that was really neat. But at night it's so dark. LA is not dark. Hollywood is not dark now because of just the amount of, you know, neon lights and things like that. So it was cool that he went and did that detail because he realized what it would look like. And that was a really neat effect. It is, everybody's saying it's his love letter to Hollywood, and it totally is. Um, the acting is fantastic. It's hilarious and creepy. Um, just really creepy. Tarantino just, you don't realize how long the movie is because you're entertained, but he captures so much. There's just some funny things, but there's also things that are so real that you can tell that these actors and as a director, he's had to deal with this stuff, like the scenes where DiCaprio's character jacks up his lines, and it's just so cool how they do it, and so the level of frustration and reality is so pure that this has happened, this is real. Um, it's just brilliantly done. The old posters, the narration, the cameos within the film. The real characters are just super amazingly well cast. There's so many, but like Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate is just perfect. We were watching, and I honestly don't know if they superimposed her, because there's some of that in here with like DiCaprio and scenes, and it's fantastic. But in the scenes from Tate's movies, I think they're actual film footage from that. I don't think it's Roby being superimposed over Sharon Tate, but they're perfect. I mean, they look so perfect. So you've got that. You've got just, you know, let me think who else. Timothy Oliphant's in this, of course, playing a Western actor, just great. He's playing James Stacy in this. Um, the guy, his name's Mike Moe, who plays Bruce Lee, could have been a clone. I mean, the casting was fantastic, but the one that really surprised me, because I wasn't expecting it, was Damian Lewis, who you may remember from the show Homeland. I've always been a fan of getting uh uh shoot I've completely blanked on his name. But sh- now I have to look this up. Daniel Craig. Oh my God, I didn't even have to look it up. It just blinked out of my mind. I always wanted Daniel Craig to be Steve McQueen in a movie, because he can still do it. He looks unnervingly like Steve McQueen. But Damian Lewis as Steve McQueen in this was a real surprise, because he looked so much like him, and it was just such a great scene where he shows up at a party at the Playboy Mansion with Mama Cass, and it's just great scenes. So the casting is spot on. Now, I did talk about um, the fact that this movie has creepy factor, and the creepy factor, of course, comes from the Manson family. Charlie's in it for a few moments. It's not very long at all that you have Charles Manson in here, but he's very much a part of the film, and he's played. He looks just like him, and of course, everybody's been talking about the fact that the actor who played him young and older in the movies, in this movie, and then in Manhunt or Mindhunters. But I've got to take a minute to talk about, and that's Damian Harriman, by the way. I have to talk about, though, the cast of characters that make up the Manson family. I'm not a Lena Dunham fan. I made that very clear a lot, but she's great as a gross hippie in this. She plays like the mother figure for the hippies, and the 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 Manson family scenes are just so just dirty and disturbing and creepy. And watching Brad Pitt's character walk around in there, you feel like at any minute he's going to be murdered. And that was so well done, because he senses it. There's something wrong with this place. As he walks around, there's just such a sense of tension, and Tarantino nails it. The creepy, just, like Children of the Damned, I don't know, factor of the Manson family. And um, the actors that are in this, that are playing them, are just so good. It's just really unnerving and creepy, especially in the scenes outside where Sharon Tate's living, and where Rick Dalton is living. They're neighbors in this. And those scenes in the car are just so disturbing to me. And man, when when they start ranting and going off about how they're going to murder these people, it is unnerving as hell. And as I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, this is, if he's making it this creepy and this disturbing, just talking about it, oh God, how are they, the scenes of them murdering Sharon Tate and her housemates at the time is going to be even worse. Oh God, I wasn't prepared for that. And, like, it hit me. I'm like, oh, he's really going to go for it. But and here's where the spoilers come in. So just as a heads up, spoilers. Um, the surprise twist here, and this is where the fantasy comes in, is they don't kill Sharon Tate and her housemates. They go for Rick Dalton and get their asses handed to them and brutally beat down by Brad Pitt's character, and who's named Cliff Booth, the stuntman, who we've already established is a badass, and his dog, who I was worried about being murdered, and she wasn't murdered. Yay. But it is some brutal shiz that happens to these guys, and you cheer it on. What happens to them is just, it is such a, you know, release of what you would love to have seen happen to them after what they did. And it's a great sequence of events. Rick Dalton, and this is where it's a fairy tale happens. And that's why it's called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's a fairy tale. So I won't go into more of that. I mean, that's that's your spoiler, is that it actually doesn't. Sharon Tate lives. They all live, except for the murderers. They don't live. Goes badly for them, in a glorious way. So the the thing that Tarantino did here, and this is where the levels of what his art is and what he's done with this, is the film, as I said, is a fairy tale story of Hollywood and what Hollywood, the ideal is, Hollywood, the where people go to be in Hollywood, and be a part of it. And that's represented by Sharon Tate. Tate in this is like this pure representation of the dream. And and in reality, that dream was cut very short and very brutally destroyed. And what he did here was he gave her the fairy tale ending. And it's really, when you start thinking about it that way, it really gets you. And Roby is so beautiful and pure and hopeful and bright in this. She's so happy. The scenes of her going to see herself at the theater and sneaking in and listening to the reaction of the crowd when she's on screen is so pure. It's such a beautiful thing. And even with Rick Dalton, you have kind of the downward spiral. That's the other side of Hollywood, is when your star is on the downward spiral, and you're getting relegated to these bit parts, and you're taking things just to be in them, knowing that what's happening, but you want to hold on to it. And his Hollywood ending for Rick Dalton and for all the actors like Dalton who are on this, they're on the end of their upward, or the end of their career. He gives him the opportunity to shine in this great scene in the Western. And that's when Luke Perry shows up, and you realize this is like the last thing he did. That was really sad to in that regard. But he did great. He looked great. But you got that. And in this film, he gives Rick Dalton his happy ending, with him becoming the actual hero he played in the movies, and then getting invited into that inner circle of the new Hollywood, and being able to be a part of it again. And that is such a neat thing. And then at the end, it's, it says Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's a fairy tale Hollywood ending for something that was the complete opposite of a fairy tale Hollywood ending. It was the worst ending that it could have been. And that was his gift. That was, and it's interesting too, how he showed, how this was really, if you think about it and you were looking at what he did here, he shows that the Manson murders and what happened with Sharon Tate was the end of that for a lot of people. It was sort of the end of that whole fairy tale world of Hollywood. When someone like Sharon Tate, when this beautiful starlet who had the world in front of her was pregnant with her baby, and was married to one of the biggest and brightest directors coming up, could have that happen to them. And the way it did was just basically the destruction of it. It was the fairy tale ideal of Hollywood was gone. This insidious darkness had crept in with Manson and his bitter attitude of him not being able to achieve his dream because I guess, people realized he was a psychotic nut job, evil bastard, and had no talent, other than brainwashing people and just being evil incarnate. When that all happened, it destroyed that. It ended the mythology of Hollywood and the ideal that it could be, the dream factory. So what Tarantino did with this was he gifted it back with the way people thought it should go, with a definite Hollywood aspect to it. And that's really beautiful and neat, and why I love movies and why people love movies and why Tarantino loves movies. Um, this was his way of creating his story of how it should have went. Definitely has a lot of Tarantino to it. Has a lot of Tarantino actors in it, like Michael Madsen shows up. I really want to see more of it. I'm sure these deleted scenes, because James Marsden plays Bruce or Burt Reynolds in this, and they cut those scenes because, like I said, it's 2.5 hours long. So I'm sure there's going to be deleted scenes on the DVD release, and I can't wait to see it. But if you're a movie fan and a Hollywood fan, and you love the classic movies and the 60s movies and the 70s movies, and you feel the way we do about Hollywood in that regard, and that you love that ideal, even if it isn't real, you love the ideal of it, and you love just the magic of that time. This movie will make you very happy, I think. It's fun, it's creepy, it's touching, it's sad, it's uplifting, and it's all of that, which is kind of all of Hollywood. It's all movies. And so he did something brilliant with this movie, and I'm really, really glad that he made this. I think it's great. It was, like I said, it's just everything about movies wrapped into one thing. If you're a fan of that stuff, and I really, really loved it, and I think you should check it out again. And also, music, the soundtrack is fantastic, yeah. So check out Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I hope you enjoyed this review. Comment, like us, share it, let everybody know that they should go see it. It's an awesome film. And I think you'll have a good time. And I think you'll like seeing the old school Hollywood recreated for us to see and visit and be a part of. So thank you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.